Loading the 1,750-pound Anyang Power Hammer with sand. William Hovey Smith, 2019. I'm the owner of a knife company, Hovey's Knives of China. And what we do is we went back to ancient China of 3,000 years ago, when China had the most advanced civilization in the world. And they made some unique bronze cooking knives, and I now make them in central Georgia out of modern carbon and stainless steels. I'm also an author. Most of my publications are outdoor books, but I do also have a business book, Create Your Own Job Security, that teaches to start your own businesses at any age, at any place, at any time, to raise the money you need to do what you need to do, and tells you exactly how to do that. My newest work is a novel, screenplay, and movie that'll be produced over the next 4 years, Father of the Grooms. And I'm now in chapter 7 of that novel, and you actually may read it chapter by chapter as I write it. A concern in installing the ankle bolts in this machine is, have I left enough room in my crib here that I can physically get around the equipment and put these holes down as near vertically as possible? And the answer is, I'm a small guy, and yes, I can. So the first thing we're going to do is take our small electric drill there with a 1/2-inch bit. I happen to have a 1/2-inch bit that will fit an electric drill, not all do, and go through the wood and then tackle it with a bigger concrete drill. The next steps in this process are to blow away the wood dust to keep it from getting in the hole later and spoiling the concrete and the set. And we're also going to actually remove that rear shroud just to give myself a little more room. It has to come off anyway, so I might as well move it now. Now, using my winch and the pulley setup I already have on the crib, I should be able to pull it fairly well straight off. Now that both the foot control piece is removed, the accessory tray is removed, and the shroud is pulled well up on the machine, I can get to those anchor bolt positions much easier. So I'm going to go ahead and drill them now. The most difficult one to drill is obviously going to be this one on top and this one that's partially blocked by that electric control mechanism. Although it was a bit of a squeeze, all 6 of the holes are drilled, and each of them shows red soil, which means I have indeed penetrated the concrete with each of the drillings. I'm using my shop vac to get up as much of this dry material as I can. That way less of it falls down the hole and we get a stronger bond. Now I'm going to take my air compressor and blow out the holes. We're getting ready to mix up our rockite here and put in our concrete anchors. We're using this cup to pour as straight down as we can. You actually need to work fast with this stuff, because by the time we got these 6 in, the material was already setting up hard. We have all 6 bolts in now. I've used the winch to pull the shroud all the way up off the machine. So now we can expose the operating pulley here in the center and detach the 2 drive belts. I'm going to lower that shroud down to put it toward the back of the machine so that when we do detach the top, they don't bang around against each other. You use a screwdriver to slip the belts off the drive pulley. Detaching the bolts requires a 15/16 inch wrench. To keep them from being damaged during the lift, I'm going to take that shroud and move it out of the cage altogether. And I'm also going to take that oil control box and temporarily duct tape it to this ram so it doesn't come loose and swing around or otherwise get damaged during the process. In regards to our sand, it has spent 2 days under my car shelter, but we had some intermittent showers along the way, but it stayed dry there. And I'm going to leave it out for several hours in the sun and let it continue to bake to get it as dry as possible before I put it actually in the machine. Not that it will make any difference in the final result. I'm going to screen the coarser material as I transfer the sand from the steel cart to the garden weight cart, which incidentally, if you never knew, will pass through a standard 36-inch door. We now have everything ready to go to see if we can actually lift the power hammer from its base. I've taken up the slack. We also have the cable actually running against the pulley here. And we have our anchor point here. Then, using a stronger cable with clamps instead of a rope, and to further reduce friction, using a pulley up top. Now, the maximum lift I can get here is going to be about 6 inches. I have my sand in the shop ready to load as soon as I get the power hammer off its base. The critical thing on the power hammer is will it pull free from that gasket. I've got a shop knife ready in case I can do a little gentle cutting and perhaps save it rather than destroy it. And if it starts to pull away on top or bottom, then I'll proceed to try to cut it free. It is starting to lift, that's good. It's lifting from the back. I'm going to need to give it some help in the front though, so it's going to be able to clear those bolts. And maybe I can do that with a crowbar. A nudge with a crowbar got it successfully lifted. So now I can move it up another couple of inches just for added clearance. Looking at all the clamps, yeah, the clamps are looking good. Okay, that's as much clearance as I can get, but that'll allow me to get a shovel in there, so that's a good lick. It's now shovel time. We're going to use the pointed nose shovel to put sand in that box. Now, where the holes were that held the accessory tray, I put screws back in those so they wouldn't be continuously leaking sand and dust. It'll be a very slow process of putting in one shovel at a time. The amount of sand I had filled it only about halfway up. So I need to go down and get some more dry sand, because I want the sand I get right now to dry a day or so. I am going to lower the hammer down on those 4x. Okay. The hammer is safely set down on the 4x now. It's solidly based. You can see I'm going to have to jiggle it and move it forward a little bit when I set it back on its post here. But yeah, it'll sit there quite comfortably for as long as it needs to. We're back from our sand mine with enough sand to finish the job. But this sand is damp, and so it's going to take 1 or 2 days to dry. One problem that I had when I removed the shroud was that support impinges on the oil drip mechanism, on the oil drip box, and particularly it hits on one of the gauges, which protrudes a little outside the box. So what I'm going to do is to take the angle grinder and I'm going to reduce the width of that supporting prong there. We have successfully reduced the width of that connecting piece there, so hopefully that'll be enough to clear the oil control mechanism. After drying in the summer sun for approximately 30 hours, we have more sand than actually we had last time around, and we're ready to complete our filling of the base of our power hammer. The movement on that column just means that it's taking some load. All right. Rid of our 4x4s and start carefully feeding it some sand again. And we are going to call that adequately filled. Now I still do have some sand left over, but no matter, I have plenty of uses for sand. And now the ticklish job of lowering the hammer down and getting it indexed back on its bolts again. With each little bit of slack I give it, the more movement and control I actually have. So just a little bit more. Too much. Okay, in the front holes, in the back holes, we're all the way down. We're home. All right, well done. We have completed the sand loading of our Anyang Power Hammer. And we have a little sand left over, but guess what? I always have a use for dry sand. And the next episode, we are going to do actually the final connecting up of the hammer itself and fire it up, literally, for the first time. And in this case, we're going to test it out on a piece of wood. If I have to make adjustments, I don't want to have a white hot piece of metal in my hand while I'm trying to do it. Because we will have to be very meticulous about fitting this part here, which is the foot control piece for the hammer. And if it's out of alignment, when we start the hammer, it'll start spontaneously striking on bare metal, and that ain't good. That will destroy a hammer. So we have to be very careful about these adjustments, and once we get everything cleaned up and fitted up here, we'll be about doing that kind of stuff. But now, this is Hovey Smith, reminding you to hunt what you eat and eat what you hunt. Be legal, be ethical, be safe. Goodbye, God bless, and see you next time. These are a few of the many patterns of knives that we actually make at Hovey's Knives of China. In respect to our novel, Luigi the Claw, who is a retired mafia enforcer, has brought his daughter back from Rome. She is the wild child of the family, and she's just driven back in her red Ferrari. And she's going to be grounded and sent to university at Catania so Luigi can keep a better eye on her. He is painting his life's work, and that is a heroic painting titled The Death of Archimedes. There are many historic paintings of deaths of various classical figures, one of Socrates, and this one here of Cicero. He is producing a painting of this magnitude to present to the museum in Syracuse. Seeing how easily the two sections of that power hammer came apart, I regret not taking it apart first off and bringing it into the shop in two lighter, smaller, easier to handle sections. That certainly would have been an asset. It would also enable me to reduce the weight and size of the crib. For more information on my books, blogs, and more than 750 videos, you can go to my website, www.hoveysmith.com. For information on Hovey's Knives of China, go to hoveysknivesofchinablog.co. For information on Father of the Grooms and how you can participate in the book, screenplay, and movie, you can go to fatherofthegrooms.net. Goodbye and God bless. See you in the movies.